Okay, this determines if we pull out or not.
You can make that work.
Stay below the tree line.
It's not in a hurry. See it go much faster.
Okay, go ahead.
From the year I was born, I was flying. I don't remember my first steps or the first words that came out of my mouth, but I do remember looking through a tiny peephole of a large wicker basket with the entire world beneath my feet.
If you had told me when I was a little boy that I would be a hot air balloon pilot, I would have thought you were crazy.
As a pilot's kid, I've learned so many lessons, and each one has profoundly shaped my life.
You have to have ice in your veins. You have to be fearless. You have to trust your instincts. You have to think quickly on your feet, make things up as you go, because literally the wind is changing every second you're up there.
You want to bend your knees a little bit?
Okay.
Okay.
You might hit a little hard.
Now come up and catch the basket.
Why would anyone want to get in that little basket and put a balloon on the top of them and go up in the air? I don't like big commercial planes, and I'm gonna get in a little 4-foot basket and go up in there. No, that's a no-no.
My dad has always seemed to be searching for something, and what he was searching for, he found in the sky.
As far as the air balloons go,
if you look around at the other balloons in the cruise, you don't see people of color.
I told Bill the only color that mattered to me was green. and we laughed, big hug, and that's true. I feel that way today.
We came down like we were parachuting. We hit the ground, we dragged 15 or 20 yards, and my heart's pumping. I just loved this. I thought that's the way it was supposed to run, until my friend Keith came over across the field and said, "Everybody okay? That was quite a crash." And I went, "Crash? If that's a crash, I'll do this again."
We arrived alive. There's no reason I should be sitting here today in balloons.
This is the reason.
That's right.
Because all of these other friendships would not have happened. This became the nucleus one that just spread. And that was God's plan in terms of spreading the friendship and the connection and the camaraderie.
My first flight was when I was 9 days old. I was literally out of the hospital 9 days later in a balloon basket and flying. Being up in the sky and it's nothing but you, a basket, and an envelope, to me, that's the definition of freedom.
Yeah, we're right on time. We gotta go pick up Al and Bev. Tony and Laura, they probably will be leaving about 5 or 6 o'clock.
What type of place is Letchworth State Park?
I heard a couple of people talking about how beautiful it was to fly in the gorge. So the gorge is actually the Grand Canyon on the East Coast. So the object of flying up there is taken off from the little park, flying right across the street, and then dropping 900 feet down into the gorge, right by the river, way down below.
Now, are there festivities up there at the race?
Not really. This is more of a private party. We got about 30 balloons coming, and we just get together and fun fly.
I've been flying with Bill for about 28 years. Every weekend we'd be coming home and we'd see a balloon in the distance and we'd try to be there when it landed. And most of the time we did. Most of the time it was Bill.
And then we asked him if we could help, and he said sure. So we helped him one time, And then a couple days later, we saw him land again, so we helped him again.
Okay, let's see what you got.
Go up the stuff too, trying to.
Oh
Oh my God. Sure you don't want us to take our car?
No.
One day he just turned to us and said, "Wouldn't you like to be on the crew?"
And we didn't know what to do, and he says, do exactly what you're doing now.
Good morning, balloon 91517. I'd like to get a weather briefing in the Bradley area between now and 10 o'clock. Any winds at 3 and 6,000 feet.
Let's see, I've been flying with Bill. I stopped counting as just like birthdays. I want to say 30 years. So one of his oldest crew members. When you find a good family and a good team and good people, you stick with it. I was selfish naturally. Finding a balloon team became, when it became a mission, and I looked over and said, here's an all-female crew with Bill. This seems like a good crew to be with. I think I'll start with this one, and I never left.
Bill is one of a kind. When we met him, I mean, he's 6'6" or 6'3", whatever it is, and I'm 5 feet, and he wraps his big arms around me and gives me a hug, and that's it, you know, it sets it all off. And Bill's always been good to us. We're part of the family, I believe.
A lot of traveling, a lot of races. It was a great, wholesome family experience. You know, it started off selfish. It was all about me at the time, but then it grew into a family, and here was a great thing to take your kids and build family experiences and family ties, and really good, build a lot of memories, and it makes your relationship with our children all the better in the long run now that they're adults.
I have been crewing with Bill for 13 years now. Tony's mom, Jan Rosado, was one of Bill's original crew members. Tony was about 10 years old at that time and came out with her to some festivals, and so he had his first flight way back when with Bill.
You are lighter than air.
One thing a crew will do is when you take off, they just follow the major roads in the path at which you're going. So once you land, you're able to pack up and drive back to the original starting point.
So you got more speed than I thought. He's starting to pick up a tiny bit. The flow is starting in the valley a tiny bit. Got a little more air movement. Because normally he always beats me here to do all that driving we just did.
Now look at him go.
Yeah. He stayed on the deck and milked it for everything he could get to keep from flying out of the area.
I can look at a balloon from the ground and know exactly what the pilot is doing in the air. So I'm very, very good at chasing a balloon down, and just by a glance, just by the pattern of the burns and how fast is he burning, how long is he burning. It will tell me if he's climbing, he's falling, and I know the terrain so well. I know downwind where he sees and what he's trying to find. So, and that was part of the challenge too, is chasing. It's pretty interesting to chase down a balloon and be there before it lands.
I get to go play in the morning when nobody else in my house is interested in getting out of bed. So you go and have a great time and be wherever you want to be most of the year by 7:30 in the morning, working back and cooking breakfast, whatever needs to be done.
I'm a teacher, and people that I work with think I'm nuts to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning on my days off to come out and do this. And my response to them always is, I get to see the sunrise. We meet new people all the time who are many times out for their first flight, and we always have a lot of fun together. It's an adventure every time.
Okay, wait on the basket.
I've been flying with Bill since about 1986, I believe. My first flight was with a cousin of mine who wanted to go for a balloon ride, and I found a way to get a hold of him, and
Been doing it ever since. I like being up high looking down on things, and this is a great way to do it. You got time to focus on things. A plane you're passing over real quick and you don't get to really see what's down there, which in the balloon you can do, and you don't have a frosty window between you and the outside as well.
Are we out of the way of the golfers?
When I started crewing with Bill 13 years ago, he could be calling me 7 days a week, and there were some times that had happened, and I loved every minute of it.
Hold up at the top. Put one leg all the way over. All the way over. Sit down. Just slide off. Okay. I need you to grab this rope here.
There are many of us that are loyal and have devoted a lot of time and effort, and we do it because we enjoy it.
I really wasn't scary. I just have to face it was beautiful, wasn't it? It was very quiet, very peaceful. There we are.
We were up there saying, this is what heaven must be like.
Yeah.
It was like, so
Everything I've tried in my life was something less done by the masses. And that truly has made the difference in my life. Being an entrepreneur is probably the greatest thing you can do because you're doing your passion. I've always said, find something you love, go in head over heels, and make it work.
The dynamic of my family when I was growing up was a very close, lovable family. I really respected my father. He was the pillar of our family, totally. My mother was very strong. She was very lovable.
Omaha, Nebraska is where I was born. And this is when I met my girlfriend and we got married. I met Dolores on 24th Street. I said, oh boy, look at this beautiful gal here. And I got interested. And we made conversation. And it went on from there. She was just everything. When you say she swept me off my feet. And I don't know, we just struck it off right at get-go. And we had our first son, Billy. Oh, that was a big delight. Then came Carmen. That was another big delight. Then came Stephen. And then little Bud, Lorraine.
This is where we used to live.
4111, and the buoy is over here.
Still got that chicken wire up for the pigeons.
Yeah. Yeah.
We stayed in the first house that I lived in until about 6th, 7th grade. It was a little quiet neighborhood. A lot of people over the years have asked me, are there any blacks in Omaha? And actually, there were a lot of blacks in Omaha. I went to an all-black school up until high school. Quiet town, didn't have to lock your doors.
You could go anywhere you wanted to, leave your door open. Your windows open, at nights, things would get so hot. Well, a lot of times we walk down to Carter Lake. And you see a million other families down there at Carter Lake.
All the families in the neighborhood took care of the other families. If you did anything wrong, you got whippings based on one of the neighbors telling on you.
We were all strict on each other. I believed in if they were doing something, you take care of them. And don't say, wait till your dad gets home. You take care of them then. If I see them, I'm going to take care of them automatically. And that's the way we manage things.
My mother, she used to work at the phone company, and she got sick. During the middle of the week, she had to go to the hospital. And I remember they got us a rabbit. We had a rabbit that day. And we all piled in the car because we was gonna go to Aunt Shirley's house because Daddy had to take her to the hospital. And we was all in the car, and Stevie, Lorraine, Billy, and me, we were sitting in the back seat. And she turned around and she kept staring at us. She just kept staring at us, and I kept saying, why is she staring at us like that? I said, why is she staring at us like that? I think she knew that was gonna be the last time she would see us. Shirley took us back home. So I went upstairs waiting for her to come home because I just thought she was coming home. And I waited and I waited, and then all of a sudden Daddy came home and she had Mama's coat. And I said, what's he doing with Mama's coat? I don't see Mama. And Daddy came upstairs and he says, Carmen, you gotta be a big girl now because you're gonna have to take over everything and everything. He said, because your mother, your mother's passed away or whatever. And I started boo-hooing. I was 7 going on 8. Lorraine was about 2. She was 1 going on 2. I think Stevie was about 3. So that makes Billy about, I guess he was about 9 going on 10.
I don't remember anything with my mom. And that's strange. I can't explain it or anything. When my mom died, I took it very, very, very hard. I think somehow I lost memory of her because I can't even remember sitting on her lap or homework. I don't remember anything about my mom. There was a period of time after that in school, I always used to look up in the clouds and visualize, that my mom was up there with God. And I was just telling a guy yesterday, I said, see those clouds up there? I said, I can go up higher than those clouds tomorrow morning if I want. I can just go up in the sky, fly like a bird.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Gary, how are you? Hey, Bill. Good to see you, man.
I saw Sunday night game in Chicago. They hired 50 more people. Yeah, it was the first time since 1918. Since the World Series in 1918.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, honey.
Monday game.
I bought my boots. Okay, well, it's one step in the right direction.
Knee pads?
Knee pads, yeah. Knee pads, helmet.
Weather does not look good for the weekend. I think we got a shot tomorrow night. We got a shot for Sunday, but it's kind of iffy all the way around, and it's kind of stuff that you probably won't know until a couple hours beforehand. Right now, there's a front that's going all the way from the Panhandle of Florida all the way up to Caribou, Maine.
Bill is a pilot. I think he's been flying 35, almost 40 years now. And I have never had a problem flying with him. When he says it's too windy to fly, his judgment is always right.
How you doing?
What's the scoop?
Rain.
No go?
Probably not. Maybe 1 or 2 might take off, and most of them won't. Unless it clears up real quick.
The radar don't look good. Getting depressing. I don't know about you guys, but
We came from Connecticut. How depressed could that be?
Over the years, going to different balloon festivals, everything is based on weather. Usually we have 4 opportunities to fly, usually 4 or 5. Usually it's Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. So out of the 4 chances that we get, we're always hopeful that we can get all 4 in. But we knew the Friday of Letchworth, we knew that the weather was going to be iffy the whole weekend.
Can you still see that pie ball, sir? It went down over on the other side of the trees. It actually went downward.
Highball is just a little party balloon filled with a little helium and release it, and as it goes up, you'll see it do different things. If the less erratic and if it's a good direction, then you make the decision to fly.
We'll sit on the ground and watch other pilots fly. He's always very cautious and safe. So when he says it's my turn to fly, I jump at the chance because I know I'm in good hands. He's looking after the safety of his passengers. The 28 years that I've been flying, we've always had a safe landing. Some landings were a little bit riskier than others, but we always had a safe landing. Everybody walked away.
So how did that kid do in the chair that went out?
You don't know yet.
You don't
Bill
know?
got some nice shots.
I saw him, and then he came
tomorrow.
back up, and that's it. I ain't saying nothing.
Either he'll be here or we'll see it on the news.
Did you get any footage of him? No, I was running my mouth and forgot. So I went over there too late.
Stand-up landing.
Well, he's okay.
Well, he was handicapped already, I believe, ain't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Tell him why.
Doing what he doing now, right? No?
Kind of. He was in Albuquerque. And him and another pilot were flying. And wind picked up and they went into power lines. And it cut the balloon right from the basket, right from the balloon. And came down. The other pilot got killed. And he broke almost every bone in his body. That's why he's handicapped.
Oh, he haven't gave it up, though.
No. He cheated it once.
You never know where you're gonna go, what you're gonna do. We've come out to the field and it'll be a little windy and so we can't fly. The next time we'll look at it and it's not windy and we will fly, and then once you get in the air, it's a little bit windier than you thought.
I have seen many miracles while I was flying in the balloon, and that's nothing but God. I know some pilots think it's their ability, but that is totally God.
I just land. And if I'm landing fast, I just ski. Literally. I would not recommend somebody with this real small and frail bones to land that in a fast landing. I just wouldn't fly. But I've landed that thing at 10 miles an hour.
Okay.
The east side. It's fun.
Yeah.
How was your flight?
Landed at 2.5 miles an hour. Way
How far
past
did you end up going?
9.7 miles. I landed way up at 408 Ridge Road.
There's a saying in ballooning, there are old pilots, there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. I've had my share of crash landings, windy landings, rainy landings. Over 36 years, I have seen it all. So I don't take any chances. My life in Omaha, Nebraska when I was young consisted of my house, church, school, and my grandmother's house. And that was a radius of about 8 or 9 blocks. This is Hope Lutheran Church. This is the church that I grew up in. And we had a school not too far from here. It was called Hope Lutheran School. The school had 2 rooms. One classroom was kindergarten to 3rd. The other classroom was 4th through 8th. And then all the students actually went to this church. My life at that age was my family. My cousins, we were real tight. We were totally outdoors. We'd leave the house at 8 o'clock in the morning and get back before it got dark. And we were just playing all day, running and riding our bicycles and playing sports, baseball, basketball, football. The front door of our house was about right here. We had a huge lot on this side that had a lot of fruit trees, apple trees, pear trees. And then on this side of the house was a lot that we used to play football in and baseball in. And it turned out, my father said that the guy who lived right next door, when he was a little boy, saw my grandfather walking on that lot and said, "You can't walk on there, that's private property." And my grandfather, who used to be a private car porter on the Union Pacific Railroad, my father said he went right down to City Hall and bought that lot. And the guy was so mad that he moved out. once he found out that my grandfather bought that lot.
You know, when you're away working during the day, and then when they come home from school, my mother used to take care of them. And then later on, I remarried. It was 5 years later. And I think they all became successful with their new mother.
When I was young, I never wanted my father to remarry because I didn't think anybody could replace my mother. And I was always shocked at the fact that here's a woman, I mean, she was really classy. That's one thing about my stepmother. She was the classiest lady you ever want to see. Intelligent, I mean, well-read. I mean, she was a wonderful, wonderful lady. There's no other woman that could have replaced my mother like she did. And my father has said so many times, he said, you know, I was very lucky. I had two good women.
She was my third grade teacher, and she was a tough disciplinarian. And I remember getting paddled on several occasions during that time. But she was a wonderful teacher and very much dedicated in her job also. And she expected nothing less than your best. And so you tried to give that to her.
Growing up as kids, we always looked up to Billy because he was the oldest one, and big, so he was like our big brother. When they choose a baseball team or something like that, he was the first person taken because he'd always hit home runs and stuff, you know. When he got in the Scouts, you know, he did everything right and was the best one at it. Because nobody was an Eagle Scout, especially a black person. You know, I don't remember anybody being an Eagle Scout besides him. Once he got into something, put his mind to it, he would usually be the best at it.
This is Central High School where I graduated, and back in my junior and senior year, I used to play football here. It was just no fun doing all that practice and hard work and then never getting into the game. Coach never put me into the game. I remember my father came to see me once to play because he used to work nights. So this one time he came to see me, the coach put me in the game with 1 minute left on the clock. I think my total playing time, my junior and senior year at Central High School was about 2 minutes. So Central High football and me didn't get along at all.
The Montgolfier brothers invented hot air ballooning, which is different than gas ballooning, helium or hydrogen. But they invented hot air ballooning. In the Champagne Valley in France in the 1780s, and they were paper manufacturers. And the first hot air balloons were predominantly made out of paper and women's silk undergarments. And it would fly off, cool down, and then crash in the vineyards in the Champagne Valley. And the farmers would see these strange things landing in the vineyards. This is all very true. And they would attack the balloons with their pitchforks and their sickles. They'd destroy the balloons. So they started tying a bottle of champagne to the balloon. And they go through the process, and the balloon would fly off, crash in the vineyards, and the farmers would come up, and they'd see the champagne, and they would leave the balloon alone, and they would just lay down in the fields and get drunk.
I've been coming to the New Jersey Balloon Festival for about 20 years. It's probably the biggest festival of the East Coast in terms of how many people come versus how many balloons are actually there. And we inflated the balloon for the first time right at the Atlanta Stadium.
The very next day was the race. So we got all the kinks out of the balloon and everything. And then the very next day, right when we were ready to take off, you could just see the rain clouds coming in. And Bob said, hurry up, we got to get this race off the ground because, the sponsors, there's always sponsor pressure. Same thing they say. So, and then I was a private pilot, so I couldn't take people up for hire. So my first 50 hours was pretty much flying solo by myself. So I took off in the race, and the clouds just came right upon us. Started pouring down rain. Here I'm flying over the tall Georgia pines, a low ceiling. The ceiling was all the way down to the pines, so the whole flight, I'm in the clouds. I couldn't come down because of the tall pines. All the rain was coming right down the center of the balloon. It was like a waterfall right on me in the actual balloon. Couldn't find no landing spot. It was foggy, couldn't see nothing. I said, I'm about to die today. Kept flying. I had to fly in about an hour and a half until I looked out and I saw this big, huge field. I said, thank you, Lord. And I just hit it right for the field. As soon as I hit the field, I went in maybe this much mud. And I was just happy to be on the ground. I just sat there, and this was out in rural Georgia in 1979. So I said, well, the Klan is about to capture me. And, there was one house right across the street. Door open, and out came running 6 white men running toward me. I'm in a field. There were horses back in the field. There was horse manure everywhere, mud, water, and here come 6 white guys after me. They got up. They got right up to the balloon. Can we help you? I said, I went to the University of Nebraska to become an architect, but during 1965. Every freshman has to take the required courses. And I remember there were 2 courses. One was called linguistics and another course was called rhetoric. Now, who wants to take linguistics and rhetoric? I hated those 2 courses. One day, I ran into a guy and he says, you know how to play poker? I said, no. So he taught me how to play poker. And we were playing poker for pennies and nickels and dimes. And I learned the game real quick, and I started winning money. My first semester, I ended up with a 1.3 average because I chose poker over studying. And the second semester, I did a little worse, and I only got a 0.7 average for a total cumulative average of 1.0 at the University of Nebraska, all because I like to play poker. I had to go see my counselor, and he sat in front of me and said, son, you are not college material. I went home, I was dejected. I knew I had to tell my father that I wasn't going to be able to go back to the University of Nebraska, and that was a hard thing to do, and he was disappointed. And at the time, I had gotten a job on the Union Pacific Railroad. And I had made a few trips, and the money was good, and I had made a decision then I was going to work full-time on the railroad. But my father didn't want me to do that, and he told my uncle what happened, and my uncle definitely didn't want me to drop out of college. He said, look, if I can get you into college, will you promise me that you will do everything different and get your grades up? I said, okay, because I really respected my Uncle Jim, and he pulled some strings to get me into Morris Brown College. And it turned out I got 4 A's and 1 B+, and I was really mad at the teacher that gave me a B+. But, I accepted the honor roll. My freshman year, I lived with my uncle and aunt and my 3 cousins
When Jim came in and said, Billy is going to come to Atlanta and he's going to live with us until he finishes college, it was not a question. It was an affirmation. Billy is coming. I said, wow, that should be fun. Somebody asked, how long is he going to be here? I said, until he finishes, because that's the way Southern African American people do. They come to a place, they will stay until they are ready to leave.
I was 7 years old when Mr. Bill came to Atlanta. All I know is there was a cool cousin coming from Omaha, Nebraska. He was like a big brother. And plus he was coming from Omaha, Nebraska, my cousin.
Bill was not easy to roll off our tongue. Billy didn't seem appropriate, and we always had to ask him for stuff, so he was Mr. Bill.
It didn't matter what time Mr. Bill came in. It was, Mr. Bill, take me to the store, Mr. Bill. Oh, my little cousin, take your little cousin to the store, Mr. Bill. And he would be so calm. He's so cool. My cousin was so cool. He was like, okay.
Go out into the car and wait for me. I'll be out there shortly, and I'll just go watch TV or whatever.
Okay, Mr. Bill. And knowing the day before, he told me the same thing, but we never got to the store. But every day was just as exciting as if I knew he was coming.
When I first came to Morris Brown, I was ineligible to play football, but I wasn't going to play anyway because I never played at University of Nebraska, and I sat on a bench 2 years in high school. So I didn't think I was any good at football. And my roommate said, I was weighing about 275 pounds then. He said, you're too big not to play football. He said, get your behind on the football team. So I tried out for the football team that year, and I earned a scholarship. And it turned out that I was pretty good on the team. I was usually a defensive tackle or defensive end. And I became pretty good. I made all conference.
Bill had a real strange, stiff run. So when he was playing football, he was Josh C. Smith and all the other college that they played. I could always pick my cousin out because he had that proud run off the football field.
Way back when we used to sit on this wall, we used to wait for the freshman women to come driving up with their father and mothers, and all the football players used to sit up here and pick out the new freshmen that they wanted to date. And it was always funny because some of the girls would come in with their boyfriends, and some of the football players would say, get your kisses now because she's mine from this day forward. So
I met Bill when we were both students at Morris Brown College, and he was at a party, and I was there with my friends, Marlene and Judy, and we kind of clicked instantly, and we became very close friends. Bill was very much of an academic person, athletic person. He loved to have fun.
you remember all the parties on Waterford Road?
Oh, yes.
With, I think his name was Jimmy.
Yes, I remember that. As a matter of fact, it was always, everybody was just Bill's having a party.
He's mannerable, he's respectful, he has integrity, but he has just this wide open way of looking at life. You know how a child has a way of seeing the beauty in life and humor and continue? He still has maintained that.
You remember Mrs. Ramseur? She was a librarian, and she lived right next door to Jim.
Yes.
Every time we had a party over there, she said, Dr. Costen, do you realize there were a whole lot of cars in front of your house while you were in South Carolina?
We used to have 50, 75 people in my uncle's house.
Oh yeah.
Reverend Costen's house.
Yes.
We really danced.
Yes, it was just like a lot of fun.
Drank and danced.
And then
No drugs.
no drugs
There were no
that
drugs
we knew
in all
about.
the parties I had. No, we're talking the 60s. I never saw any drugs. Never.
And
I came to Hartford and oh my goodness, I've been missing.
and before when everything was over, it was just like make sure everything put back in place. It was just like nobody, had a party or anything in the house. But it was always they're gone.
Trauma from the slave ship to the inner city pavement. Let's stop the cycle now.
It dawns on me that when little Bill came to Atlanta, we were in the midst of the civil rights movement. In fact, my husband had been one of the leaders in North Carolina. And when he was offered the job to Atlanta, he was excited about coming because he would be able to spend much more time with Martin Luther King Jr. So here we sat with Martin many an evening, and all of us were just in awe of being in his presence. But he was so down to earth.
I remember I was standing on this bridge in 1968 watching Martin Luther King's funeral procession coming down Hunter Street. And I remember running down that walkway and I jumped in the funeral procession right behind the casket. And I had my father's video camera and we walked all the way down and turned left and went over to Morehouse College.
On the stop, number 21. Good for 23 yards. Timeout.
I felt out of all the guys that I came up against, there wasn't a single guy that I couldn't handle one-on-one, mainly because of my strength, and I was pretty quick. A scout came up to me, and he said he was from the Dallas Cowboys, and he was interested in me. I said, what? I was shocked. Shocked. I was totally shocked that a pro scout was interested in me after the background that I had in football. So I started getting confidence. I had 4 or 5 different teams coming up, giving me aptitude tests, timing me in the 40-yard dash, watching me play the game, and they were promising me a high draft pick. My senior year was coming up, and we had a scrimmage game right before the regular season started. In the scrimmage game, I ended up breaking my left wrist. I was scared at that time because I had had so many scouts looking at me, and I didn't want to jeopardize me not getting drafted by the professional teams. I said, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody. So each game, I used to wrap my wrist real tight. I really worked on my strength. So I had a lot of strength in my right arm, and I had strength in my left arm. I just had to keep my wrist straight.
I think he had hurt his arm in training or in practice or something. And I jumped on his chest and I grabbed his fingers and I started wiggling them like this. And he just laid there and he said, I am gonna throw you across the room when I count to 3. He said 1, 2, 3, and I go across the room. But what's amazing about that is that it's as if I wasn't hurting his hand. His hand was broken. And that was my image of Mr. Bill, just invincible, just, a real big guy, didn't have a lot of fat on him, he was very strong.
So I got drafted by the Buffalo Bills, and I was really happy, and all my friends were running around. Oh, he's going to the pros, and George, who was going to the Miami Dolphins, we were all excited, and over the next few days, on campus, a lot of people were, happy for us that, guys from Morris Brown were going to the pros. And, it was just a fun time.
When Billy first was going to the Buffalo Bills, I bragged to all my friends, I said, my cousin Billy, playing for Buffalo Bills. That was a proud moment. I mean, that's a rare thing. I mean, there's a lot of people that play a lot of different sports, don't make it through the pros. So, I mean, that's huge, to have a cousin and a close cousin playing in the NFL. I mean, that was a big bragging rights thing there.
All right, we're clear for takeoff. Everybody now at the countdown. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire!
We're on our way to the field now. I have to check in before 5 o'clock. What the FAA will do, they check all your log books and your license and all the insurance cards and everything, so you have to be current and up to date. Otherwise, they won't let you fly.
Here to welcome you here to New Jersey. Pray for no more thunder and lightning. We have the mayor here. We have a council person, a committee woman here, who are here to encourage you to stay around until the weather gets cleared up. I want to say thank you. What you do is important to the economy. But more importantly, where's my son? My 10-year-old is here, and I don't think you can put a dollar value on how important it is that you give children exposure to what you do as a hobby or as a business.
Mother Nature is the one that's telling us what to do, and you don't see it coming. You're at the mercy of the winds, and the winds can blow in different directions, and they can change on you real quick.
We had a thunderstorm that just went over, pouring down rain. But the briefer said that behind the thunderstorm was clear skies. So he's going to let us know definitely at 7 o'clock whether we should fly or not. So if that's the case, if it's still clear and no more cells pop up, then we'll give it a shot. I enjoy being out there and seeing how happy people are when they go for a ride. Most of the passengers we have are first-time flights, and seeing the smiles on their faces and how happy they are once they land. We've had people go up that are afraid of heights, and they need encouragement to get in the basket from who they're flying with. And once they come down, they can't believe how pleasant it was and how much they enjoyed it. And seeing that kind of experience is really enjoyable. You notice right now the balloons are touching. You really don't want that to happen.
Yeah, what happens, Bill?
It's okay.
The balloon?
I've seen my dad under pressure, and he is the most pinpoint focused individual I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen that look on my dad's face. Sometimes when he's thinking about landing spots, he's thinking about potential flight paths, he's just like focused on his game.
At the speed we're going, we need to land.
What speed's gone? We need to land?
We need to go. We're going too slow, and there's nothing but woods over there.
One thing about being a balloon pilot, you have to make correct decisions, and you have to make them instantly. You have to just know which direction is the balloon flying, how fast is it going, And one thing I've learned, if I don't hurt the balloon, I won't hurt any of the passengers. And my number one responsibility is the safety of my passengers.
We ain't done yet, hold on.
At Buffalo, I was the strongest lineman and I was the fastest. We had to run a 100-yard dash, and I ran as fast as I could, and I beat all the linemen by about 10 yards. And the coach came up to me, he said, "That was great, never be second." While I was walking off the field, a bunch of linemen came up to me and said, "What you trying to do, rookie?" So from then on, I had to run fast enough to beat everybody and never be second. He used to put me up against the offensive linemen every single day. And finally, all of the rookie defensive linemen got cut, and I was the only defensive lineman left. One practice, he says, "Okay, I'm gonna see how tough you are." There were 12 offensive linemen over there. He put me one-on-one up against every single one of them. I had to hit and then release. I literally beat all 12 of them. And I never will forget when we were going to the locker room, the coach came up to me, he said, "You keep that up, I'll make you all pro." Buffalo was a lot of fun. I met O.J. Simpson, met Marlon Briscoe, and all the other pros. Each week, the team had to get rid of somebody. So each week, about 10 guys would get cut. So we were playing the New York Jets in our first preseason game in Birmingham, Alabama. It was battle time, and we kicked off to the New York Jets. And I ran down the field and made the first opening tackle. We were losing 20-0, and it was late in the fourth quarter. And I was going in to block a punt. And my roommate actually blocked the punt. And I picked up the punt and ran for a touchdown. I think it was 22 yards. And I was just so happy. I said, "Wow, I made a touchdown." I mean, my whole football career in college, I never even touched the football. And here I was, I made a touchdown in my very first professional football game. And I mean, I was just on cloud nine, and I went running off the field. I was just so happy, and I was getting high fives from all my football buddies and everything. And then I was standing there watching them getting ready to kick the extra point, and the referee threw the flag. And I looked over there, and there were only 10 men on the field. And the coach came over to me. He said, "Aren't you supposed to be out on the field?" All the way back from Birmingham to Buffalo that night, they were calling me $50 touchdown kid, because the coach fined me $50 for not being on the extra point team. But I didn't care, because I had made a touchdown. I had the only touchdown. I was the leading scorer. The next week, O.J. Simpson caught a pass and scored a touchdown. And an article came out into the paper. O.J. Simpson caught a pass, which tied him for the scoring league with Bill Costen. Both have 6 points. That was a total high for me at that time because in the Buffalo Bills program, it showed O.J. Simpson 1 touchdown, Bill Costen 1 touchdown. Got back to Buffalo, and the coach called a practice the very next morning. And the very next morning, right before practice, they called me into the office. Anytime you had to go see Harvey, that wasn't good news because Harvey was the general manager and he was the guy that cut people. I said, why are they calling me to the office? And I went to the office and Harvey says, I'm sorry to inform you, but we're cutting you. I said, you cutting me? What for? And he never told me what for. He says, it's just one of those things. I decided to go to the farm team of Buffalo, which was the Hartford Knights in Hartford, Connecticut. And I had never even heard of Hartford, Connecticut. I said, what's a Hartford, you know? And during that time, all of the Hartford Knight players, we practiced every night. All the players had daytime jobs, and then we played our games on the weekends, on Saturday night usually. So I had to get a job because the salary that the Knights were paying was small. So I got a job with Travelers Data Center. And so I was working every day in the data center. And then each night we used to practice and then we played the games on the weekend. Here I was in a brand new city, and I was still planning to go back to Atlanta after the football season was over. But like I said, I got the job with Travelers, and I started meeting women, and I started meeting a lot of women, and I started going to different clubs up here, and I said, wow, this is a fun little town. So I made a decision to stay in Hartford, and during that time, you know, I met a bunch of guys. We got together and we formed a chess club, and in the chess club we started having parties and giving back to the community through the club and everything. So it was a real fun time in Hartford after football.
I was going to a party, and it was at the Holiday Inn in Hartford. And I walked into the party and I saw this big afro. I said, whoa, who is this? I guess I need to meet her.
I was sitting down talking to some friends of mine, and Bill happened to walk into the room. And as he was walking in, I happened to look towards the door, and our eyes caught each other, and he kind of smiled with that innocent young boy look. And after I talked to my friends for about a half hour, he came walking over and introduced himself as Bill Costen.
I wasn't all that. I was shy. I had to get a few nips in me before I would open up to talk.
He started up a social club in which a group of us would get together and give events and invite all the professionals from within the region. And people would come from all over the state, Western Mass, and they were really large events. And that's where our socializing began.
I was totally in love. I always respected Linda because of her mind. I mean, she had a sharp mind. She knew everything. She was a bookworm. And she retained everything she knew. but she would always know the answer to everything. We became best friends. I just always knew that the two of us working together, we could just conquer the world.
Very good. He kept telling me, never in 1,000 years would I guess who it would be. And about 10 minutes later, I said, Joe Bill.
Now, I have a question. Yesterday, I went shopping. I don't shop very often. Do these pants make my butt look big? This is Alexandra. This is my daughter.
How are you today? Nice to see you. She was a little tiny thing.
Some of the sponsors are here. Go out, put your basket out, get it ready for rigging. If you can, keep the cover on, as long as it's not raining. We would like to see a few people inflate this morning. I know it's difficult because of the mist, so let's wait and see what happens. We'll come back at 7 and we'll talk about it, okay?
I told my parents and friend that on the way over. Morning like this, we got here, every fog is starting to lift, airport is all clear all the way around. People are popping up, they're leaving. We're hemming and hawing, should we go, should we not go? We finally make the decision, okay, we're gonna go. Crew gets in, I get in, we lift off. We probably went about 300 yards outside the airport, and it was fog for about the next 45 miles as far as you could see. Yeah. We're hitting the burner and the car horns so we could tell who was who and where they were. They couldn't see us, we couldn't see them. We had no idea where the ground was. Flying dead into a fog bank, and we had to come down. We were running out of fuel, and it was, we had no idea what was below us. Power lines, trees, water, cars. We had no idea.
Once we got above the fog and above the clouds, it was like just a rolling bed of clouds. Like as far as you can see, it's just white. And it's the most beautiful, I was probably 7 at the time, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And we're just drifting toward the sun slowly. It was like a piece of heaven. It was like I was there. I'm looking up at my dad, and he seems calm as always. He'll never show any expression on his face. He's just calm, collective. But then I realized we were up there for a while.
I tried to maneuver to get back over to where it was less fog, but we never made it. We just kept drifting more and more toward the mountains. And I knew there was a river. I've flown that valley many times. I knew there was a river coming up. And I knew we had to land at some point. You're gonna run out of gas. So we were up about 600 feet. And I also knew there was a big line of power lines that crossed the whole valley. So that was my concern, coming down in that fog, which you couldn't see anything, and wondering where those power lines were. But I had no choice, I had to come down. So we eased the balloon right down, little by little. And all of a sudden I saw the power lines, and I panicked, and I just went up maybe to 1,000 feet.
I heard a message from the Lord, I feel. There was a butterfly that was pretty high up in the fog, just flying around the basket, fluttering around, going away. Came back, fluttered in front of my face, went away. And something just told me, follow the butterfly. And, I whispered it to my dad. Fortunately, he got out of the zone and he heard me. And, when the butterfly dipped down, he stopped burning. And, the basket would dip down. The butterfly came back up, he would burn again. And he basically just followed the butterfly pattern. And we found our way to a little clearing, and we were able to land there. And we were so grateful, just because the fog was so dense and it was so thick. And actually one of our crew members was in the basket at the time. And when he jumped out, we were actually in a swamp, so we had to actually push the balloon over a little swamp into the clearing.
My manager had went on vacation. And then when he came back from vacation, all he could talk about was this balloon experience that he had. And this was back in '75, and nobody was talking ballooning. And so he said, well, I'm gonna put a club together maybe, or get a bunch of guys together. And we didn't know what together meant, but it sounded like fun. One day on a Sunday afternoon, my cousin came by with his boss, knocked on the door. I went to the door, and they were all excited, and they showed me this brochure. They said, let's start a balloon club. I said, what's a balloon? And I had never seen a balloon, so they showed me pictures of the Budweiser balloon. I said, oh, nice balloon. I was drinking many Budweisers at the time. I said, well, what does a balloon do? And they said, well, you ride in this little basket underneath the balloon. I knew his answer was going to be no. I knew it. But he surprised me. He says, yeah, let's check it out. My first flight was at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. And my instructor and I took off in the balloon. He said, I want you to know, I'm not going to do anything. I'll tell you what to do, but you're going to fly the whole flight. And he explained the instruments that were in the balloon. He said, I want you to fly this flight without the instrument. I was always confident that I could just do anything. So the flight was very beautiful, and that's the main thing I saw. I said, wow, this is so pretty, you know, just seeing the countryside and everything. And he said, you're a natural flyer, because, you know, I flew the whole flight, landed, and I was just sold right then. We hooked up with 3 other people, met at a bank, signed a joint loan, bought a balloon for $4,800, and started Sky Unlimited Balloon Club. I immediately saw the commercial part of ballooning. I came up with the concept of putting the state seal of Connecticut on the side of a balloon and coming up with the State of Connecticut Bicentennial Balloon. So my ballooning start came with designing that balloon, proposing it to the manufacturer. The manufacturer was excited about it, and they had me meet Bob Walagunda, who was the distributor for the whole East Coast.
I actually first started ballooning, I saw a balloon in college, and I got excited about it. In fact, I saw it the one day, the next morning I was taking lessons. And then I flew out to see a fellow named Ed Yost out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he's the father of modern hot air ballooning. He's the one who designed and built the original hot air balloon. They were looking for some inexpensive way to train dirigible pilots. They were using helium balloons, which were very expensive, so he came up with the hot air concept.
I hitchhiked to New Rochelle, New York, because Bob Walagunda was going to be at a balloon festival in New Rochelle. He told me all these dreams that he was doing with ballooning. He was coming up with a balloon racing circuit that would go all over the country and fly in different festivals. And he said, if I bought my first balloon, that he would make me a dealer. So one of the guys in the club, I talked him into putting up the money for another balloon, and I would put up the dealership. So that's how Sky Endeavors got formed.
I got in early, and when I saw the balloon, it's not the typical aviation story where you see the birds soar and the eagles fly. I said, oh my gosh, I could put somebody's name on that and make a fortune. So that was the whole thing. It was a commercial, a business enterprise for me, and I said, this is absolutely wonderful. We met great people. Joe Kittinger, for example. Joe made history when he jumped out of a gas balloon at 102,000 feet. Ben Abruzzo, who was one of the first to fly across the ocean, Ed Yost, people that were truly pioneers in the business, old-timers, people that have been in the ballooning since its inception, Ed Yost's original ground crew. And we all became very, very good friends.
I met Bill with Bob Walligunda in 1979. Bob came down for a promotion for the Bay Hills golf tournament and a balloon race, and he asked me to join his team. And there were 3 balloons, and Bill was one of the balloonists. I remember seeing Bill as a football player for the Buffalo Bills, and he was a great athlete, and obviously a very good and successful balloonist.
The common bond was ballooning, and the love of the sport, the love of the business, and the fun we all had. And as ballooning grew, we grew with it.
Ever wonder what it's like to fly like a bird, high up in the sky? Just think of it. No more car fumes, no more stoplights, and no state cops. Nah, just you and that old-fashioned wind power.
We were both working full-time while we were doing ballooning and some of the sales distribution.
But over the years, more and more people wanted to go up in the balloon. So I was pretty much doing a full-time business just on the weekends and working as an underwriter during the week.
So we almost had no time because we're flying in the morning, going to work, then getting out just early enough so we could fly at night during the summertime. And being young and youthful, you know, you don't really feel it for the first year or two.
I'm standing next to Linda Costen, and she's going to tell us about ballooning.
One day, I woke up and my wife didn't go to work, and I went to work, and then she didn't go to work the next day, and I went to work, and she didn't go to work for the next 2 or 3 weeks. I said, what's going on? She said, oh, I quit my job. I said, well, you quit your job? What are you talking about, you quit your job? During that time, she didn't know that our companies were merging and that the other company who bought our company was weeding out underwriters and workers from my job. And I was so mad that she quit her job, and I had a feeling that I was going to get fired. I went into the office and gave my 2-week resignation, and I quit my job. So there we were. She didn't have a job, I didn't have a job, and the very next week she told me that she was pregnant with my first son. I said, what? And she says, I'm pregnant. That's when ballooning became full-time.
Ballooning is very much of a fantasy, and it's very much of a romance. People really have fantasies about wanting to go up in a balloon, and I would say to all of them, once in your life, go ahead and do it, because it's better than you can ever imagine that it can be. And for all the people that have any fears about it, it's nothing like standing on a building. It's nothing like flying in a small plane. There's actually no real sensation of movement. You close your eyes, you can't tell you left the ground, and it's very safe and very calm sport.
I like the advertising portion of it, and I like being able to approach organizations that needed to realize how this visual concept could accent their public relations and their advertising at a cost that was probably a lot less expensive than some of the airtime that they were buying, and the visibility and the thousands of people that actually would see their brand and their name.
If you're flying for a sponsor, you're their representative. So it's not that you're just flying with their name on the balloon or their product name, but you know, you may have to represent them at a press conference, you may have to speak to their products. And Bill was articulate, he was very bright, and And I knew that I could always rely on him to put his best foot forward for the sponsor. And everything we did was for the sponsors. I mean, it was something that they were paying the bill, so we wanted to give them the most for their money.
Bill took a real liking to it and took it beyond, even our wildest dreams at those initial stages. We weren't sure where it was going, but it looked like Bill had made the decision to take it very, very far.
Most of our business got started advertising. We would take the balloon to companies that were having corporate parties, or they were introducing a new product, and we would put banners on the side of the balloon.
We do weddings, outdoor events for companies where they want to have tether rides or special promotions, and we do regular fantasy champagne flights. We have executive limo flights. Those are about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. We do just about anything you can do with balloons and outdoor advertising, rooftop balloons, or anything dealing with outdoor advertising.
When you talk about a black balloonist, it was an opportunity. And in today's world, people make a big deal about black and white. Well, the reality was that this was a business, and it was an opportunity that we could both take advantage of. I liked Bill the minute I saw him. It didn't matter what color he was. It was in his eyes. It was in his manners, his enthusiasm for what we were doing. And he had a great sense of humor. And we'd laugh. We'd just have fun. And if you can do something in life where you can laugh and have fun and still make a lot of money, then you're in the right place.
In ballooning, we're really in the entertainment business. We're entertaining people. They come out to enjoy this ride. If they just get on a bus or get on a plane, it's not quite the same thing. So we're really hosts when people come out for a balloon ride. And I always thought that Bill would be a very fun host to be with, because he would be enjoying it just as much as the people experiencing it for the first time.
When I first started ballooning, I was part of this balloon racing circuit. So I was constantly competing against the other pilots. And I was, we had prize money, so I was competing to win. But I was up against some of the most experienced pilots in the world. And that made me better. The winds are light and calm. Looks like we're gonna have a perfect flight.
The hare and hound race. The hare would take off first, it would land. The hounds, which were the rest of the balloons, would take off after the hare balloon. At the end of the hour, the hounds would land closest to the hare balloon. Whoever landed the closest would win the race.
There's the X right there. We never saw it. Oh, where's the beanbag? Where's the beanbag? Can you throw it? Oh, my goodness. Look at that.
Over the years, I became more conservative. If I'm flying in a familiar territory, I look at the end result. Where do I want to be? And my concentrations are based on, what wind I need to utilize to get me to that point. Because at every altitude, winds are blowing in different directions. So I'm able to maneuver to different places. So I take a lot of pride now into picking out a spot, and literally sometimes I tell the crew, go to that spot. As long as you got two winds, you can control. If you got a left wind and a right wind, you just have to find out what level of the atmosphere is going in a particular direction that you're going in. When I transferred from University of Nebraska to Morris Brown College, my uncle said, "You want to go to lunch?" I said, "Yeah." Took me to lunch and introduced me to Martin Luther King. And I didn't know who Martin Luther King was, and this was in 1966. Having no black experience at all, I vowed then that I was going to learn Black history that wasn't even taught in the Black school that I went to.
He was pretty much a collector and very much organized.
We belonged to a postcard club and got to know a lot of dealers, and we'd follow these shows around the Northeast just about every weekend that he could do it. There were even occasions when we came away with nothing or one or two fabulous additions to his collection.
This is about 30 years of collecting.
The Costen Cultural Exhibit is a Black traveling exhibit that I take around to different schools and companies. And I've come up with a magnificent African American history exhibit. And it's amazing how many Black kids have no idea of their heritage. The exhibit that I've come up with covers everything from Africa to current day Black Lives Matter.
Being the editor of the Northern Agents, he used to come in and sit down and we used to just talk and talk about events. And Bill is very good with a camera. He liked to take a lot of pictures.
He's been showcasing the lives of people and putting their best facets on display. He's always been good at pinpointing those strengths in people and bringing them to the surface.
I was doing a Women's History Month exhibit, and this little girl, about 8 or 9 years old, she came up to me. She said, "I didn't know women could fly airplanes." Well, last year I was at the library, and a lady came up to me, and she says, "I was that little girl that asked you that question about Bessie Coleman, and now I'm a student pilot." So you never know what just one picture in a young child's mind what it can turn into.
Here's a toast to all of us being here as a family. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in ballooning is failure is not an option. Failure is usually one step from success. And I've learned that you have to work hard, you have to be dedicated, you have to find people who are loyal to you, you treat them right, work as a team, and you can really achieve whatever you want in life.
Ballooning families always socialize with other ballooning families from the time you're born, okay? As long as you know that there was a festival, you could go there by yourself and you'll see a family that you know and you spend that weekend with them. It's very special that you have relationships with people, that people know each other multi-generational.
It's such a milestone in Bill's life that I thought it was fun to interview Bill and some of the people who played important roles in his life. And because I couldn't interview him, because it was spoiled a surprise, I decided to improvise. So Bill, this is your life, according to me.
I chose to do ballooning full time. That locked me out of a lot of people who were afraid of heights. So I chose a very difficult business to partake in. So it's been very difficult just surviving hot air ballooning and then going into everywhere I went. When people found out what I did, "You do what? You crazy." And I would hear everything.
If you look around at the other balloons in the cruise, you don't see people of color.
Oh, no.
And it raises the question, so what about someone who replaces you when you retire? And as the person that sort of writes about it, does PR and promotion, it's like, you know, there's got to be some way to start. Everybody sort of has their passion. And so it's, how do you start some kind of foundation, something? Who trains? How do we get kids to follow you so that once you're gone, the legacy doesn't end there?
For some reason, people of color haven't shared experiences like the white balloon flyers. They're telling their friends and their relatives it's the best thing since sliced bread. So they're saying, okay, let's go up. And it's just that we don't have a history of, let's say, taking chances when it comes to something in a sport. You know, hang gliding, jumping out of planes with parachutes. You don't see a lot of people of color doing that. So it's changing. And I think with Bill's contribution to 40 years of ballooning, he made a big difference in those experiences, and that's gonna propel the business and the experience of ballooning for years to come.
My name is Mick Murphy. A real honor and privilege to be here, not only on behalf of the Balloon Federation of America, but as a good friend to Bill Costen. Today I'm here to present the Yost Master Pilot Award, which has been given out to only a handful of pilots at this time, to represent over 40 years of safe flying. So it's quite an honor to receive the highest recognition of the Federation for an individual pilot's skills, but by someone he knew and respected. So without further ado, Bill, please join me on the stage.
To receive an award based on the man who started hot air ballooning, I'm totally thrilled. Back in the early days when I used to sit, you know, in a restaurant or a bar, listening to the stories of how he came up with the idea of a burner to, you know, propel the balloon up in the air, to have flown with him and against him in different balloon races. You know, I just can't even imagine getting an award for all the fun that I've had over the years. First of all, I want to thank my crew. Would my whole crew stand up, please? This is for all of us. Those people over there used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, come out to Farmington, help me set up the balloon, jump in a car, chase the balloon wherever I landed, where I never knew where I was gonna land. They would run through the fields, come. They have actually saved my life many times. And I just thank you. And this goes to all of us. I mean, I couldn't have done none of this without you. So thank you very much. I want people to know that I spent my life entertaining. I spent my life trying to be safe and helping them to enjoy an experience that they never would have experienced had they not chosen to go up in a balloon.
Cheers to the best hot air balloon pilot I've ever had in my life.
I would like people to know that I love people and I love seeing people have fun.
It was Tuesday, February 26, 2019, and I received a call from my dad. He said that he was having difficulty walking and wasn't sure what was going on. I told him to go to the hospital. I remember he had to stay the night there that night, and I was driving home when I got the call. He said the doctor said that he had a stroke, and I immediately pulled over. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, I was crying hysterically. And he just stayed on the phone with me. I don't even know how long. The time went by so fast. But he was there. When I think of my dad, that's who I think of. Just a genuine, selfless, godly man who would do anything for anyone. The next morning, I remember waking up at my brother's house and received a call from a family friend. She had just found out about Dad having a stroke. She began to ask what she could do. She wanted to get some community members together and figure out how they can help. And suddenly, she started to weep. And in that moment, I realized that my dad is not only my hero, but I share him with so many others. Following the stroke, Dad was determined to get back out there and live his life with his new normal. Within a month, he had gained his confidence back and was walking unassisted. He was back at different events, doing photography and displaying his exhibit. And I'm just so proud of his level of determination and perseverance. And I'm convinced nothing will stop him. It's really difficult to describe the type of human being my father is. But I'm certain that the world needs more people like him. My entire life, he taught me that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. There's no mountain that God cannot move, and there's nothing that you can't overcome. To see my dad through a different lens and to tell his story as best as possible has been such a challenge. But his voice remains in my head, and I'm just grateful to be able to experience him as my father. And I'm thankful for all of the moments that we continue to share. It's hard, but I'm learning that this is the circle of life. And when he passes me his baton and I continue to walk in my light, I know that he'll always be there, encouraging me and cheering me on. Thank you for allowing me to share my father's story with you. And I want to leave you with one thing that my dad always told me. And I say it in the most cliche way there is. The sky's the limit. Literally, the sky is the absolute limit.
All right, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Go, Dad, go. All right, come back this way. Look at him go. That's amazing.
This life is but a dream that we can make come true. But it's up to you and me. It's what I've learned from you. Our reality is something we can hold, something we can mold into anything we want it to be. You can fly so high above. You can laugh and you can love. And I know you'll always be. You'll be right here with me. You could soar right through the wind. You can lose or you can win. But you won't know till you try. And that's the way you live your life. I'll remember what Even when you're far away, the things you taught me always stay on my mind and in my heart. So we will never be apart. I just want you to know that your love helped me grow. I don't have to be afraid, 'cause it'll all be okay. You can soar right through the wind. You can lose or you can win. I don't need to say it loud, but I hope I made you proud. I'll remember what you said, to live my life with no regrets, because we only get one chance to make it count and make it last. Even when you're far away, the things you taught me always stay on my mind.